Hey there, I'm Zach Abramowitz, and I am legally disrupted. Richard Tromans from artificiallawyer.com is back for the third installment of Zach and Richard's excellent legal AI adventure. And this week we are talking about a very timely topic, which is Robin AI and the recent layoffs, the news about them not being able to close a round of funding, potentially going insolvent. Is this a canary in a coal mine? Is the AI bubble coming? Or are we just getting started? Let's get disrupted. You ready for our next adventure?
Oh, sorry, I was asking the audience.
Oh, wow! We are in.
I start again.
This is vibe. No, this is vibe podcasting. We are off to a great start. You joked to me yesterday, like, well, what are we going to possibly talk about? Is there any news in this space? So I thought I would just go ahead and jump right into it.
Yep.
And get us started with our first big headline, as this has been the topic. This has really been the topic for the last couple of days. Is this story, and I've got it up here on the screen, is from Artificial Lawyer. I get my stuff there. Robin AI lays off staff as growth disappoints. Robin AI, the pioneering legal tech business, which was quick to combine Gen AI and human experts for contract review, is laying off staff after disappointing growth. A subsequent article in Artificial Lawyer from yesterday, Richard, you wrote about the fact that they are now listed on this kind of explain this to us. This is a kind of like place in England where you go and you list that you've got like a business that's essentially facing insolvency and up for sale. I didn't even know that you could go and list yourself on such a site like this. This is like Tinder for distressed acquisitions.
To give them credit, it was a newspaper in England called CTAM who broke that particular piece of news. They said, I presume because they're a business newspaper and they probably have a tracker link, an update link connected to all the different insolvency websites. So whenever a big company or a company of note goes onto that website, they get a little ping, I'm guessing, or maybe someone called them and told them. They wrote about, I don't know which one it is. I understand that story is correct, and that they are indeed looking for an investor, a buyer. As I mentioned in the piece, the exact financial position of Robin is not public, right? In the UK there are public accounts, but they don't have to publish them on a daily basis. So we don't actually know for sure what the position is, and so it's best not to speculate on that. However, the general gist is broadly right, which is that yes, they're looking for a buyer, yes, they're looking for an investor, because the first effort to get big investors who would sign big checks really didn't work out as planned.
Yeah, and there's some other news that you reported on this as well, which is that they've laid off a significant amount of staff, obviously, but they've laid off some earlier in the year, and they're now in a process of letting go more people. Yeah, and are letting go another CTO. So it seems
we should clarify that he has not been let go. So there was the first CTO, James Clough, who was the co-founder. He left of his own volition, as far as I understand. He was replaced by a second CTO who left for, all we can say, is other reasons. He was not laid off, as far as I understand.
So not connected to this, but there seems to be at least some tumult going on at Robin. Now, I have to tell you, this is like a interesting story for me, and I'm sure that you have people that at Robin as well. I know I've seen them at your conferences before. I have friends at Robin. I actually have an even more personal story with the company, which is that I had an opportunity to invest in Robin at their earliest round because Bradley Gayton, who at the time was moving to be the general counsel of Coca-Cola, and was also beginning to look in writing checks and investing as an angel investor in startups, and we were very close at the time. And he flagged Robin for us, and we took a look, And I have said to Richard Robinson since that if I had met him in person, I'm 100% sure that I would have invested, because he is really impressive and really charismatic. And I think did a really fantastic job with the businesses in the earliest stages. And I also give Robin a lot of credit. I think they pivoted to large language models very, very quickly, and quicker than some other companies did. And so I've been very bullish on the company. What I will say, because I think that the question that everyone is asking right now is this canary in a coal mine? Is this the first AI domino to fall? And all those people that have been hoping against hope, oh my gosh, all we've seen is growth over the last 3 years. Please show us something that suggests that maybe AI is hype after all. So now they've got their thing they can point at. Robin is, was like, first of all, not a name, let's be honest, that like many people were actually like paying it so much attention to over the last 6 months. So I think like most of the people that are probably getting all energized right now about, look, AI is hype, Robin is failing. First of all, I don't know that Robin is failing. This is a separate question and what that means. But then I also think that there is like, I certainly don't think this is a canary in the coal mine. If anything, I know about more companies right now that are raising money from top VCs. There's more legal AI to come. So if you thought that like we had sort of ended here and now Robin's in trouble, so like this whole AI thing is going to go away and we can kind of go back to work as usual, I think you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's I guess they call it Schadenfreude, don't they? If I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it is strange how there is an element in the legal tech world, and I guess in every vertical, whether it's selling caravans or furniture, there's a certain group, perhaps unconsciously, who rejoice in bad news.
Right.
I'm not rejoicing at all. I mean, I met Richard Robinson very early on. I remember having dinner with him in North London, and he told me all about the Anthropic plan. And I hadn't, to be honest, knew very little about Anthropic at that point, a couple of years ago. And I was tremendously excited for them. And it's very sad what's happened, indeed. And to your point about, is this an individual issue or a systemic issue? There are some systemic aspects, i.e. everyone getting very excited and then forgetting that when there are so many players, whether it's because of competition, whether it's because of strategic choices that are made which don't pay off, whether it's staffing choices, whether it's management choices, whether it's a whole bundle of different things, management culture, internal culture, who knows, tech issues which weren't resolved. We don't know. The truth is we simply don't know. So we can speculate, we don't know. Will those things surface at this and other companies in the next few months? Yeah. For sure. Once that initial wave of money and that frothy cash starts to sort of, get spent, and we come up to the next round for a lot of companies, right? Well, once the runway is gone, we're on to the next runway. And the investors look at the books and go, wow, you have not grown as much as I thought. Will there be others? I think there could be 2 or 3 more. I don't know which ones. But if someone said, X other big name that everyone thought was going to win out has not, I would not be surprised. However,
but again, like, did people think like were people like thinking about Robin in those terms?
No,
I think Robin was like an early name, was an early name in AI, and there's certain things about Robin that I really like, but I don't think that they were even one of like the top 5 names that you would think about.
Even seen as having received insane amounts of money. I mean, people were right. Robin's worth $25 billion or anything. They were seen as they received sensible amounts of investment. They were growing relatively well. They had a business model that seemed to make sense. To be honest, they were not one of the companies you would have expected.
But like they weren't even on everyone's tongue. It was like Harvey, Legora, Co-Counsel, VLEX. I'm trying to think of like a fifth.
Spellbook. Yeah.
Right, Spellbook. I mean, these were like the names, and I think if you had seen one of those top 5 companies that I just mentioned, and again, we could quibble about who the sort of AI leaderboard really is, but if we had seen one of those companies that have been, in the news repeatedly, multiple times a week for the last 6 months, if we had seen one of those companies go down and have either serious dysfunction or layoffs or a missed round, then I think that there might be more of a story. I think the fact that people have to kind of lean on Robin AI as their canary in the coal mine, when if they're being honest with themselves, they haven't thought about Robin once in the last year.
And maybe that's the issue, isn't it? People haven't perhaps been thinking about them quite as much.
So wait, let's. Yeah, why do you think that is? Because I have my own theory about this. Why do you think that Robin AI has fallen off the radar?
Well, there's several reasons. But just before I get on to it, I just want to say that I don't think it's canary in the coal mine, because even though there are, you might say, peripheral issues that you could say, are experienced and will be experienced by other companies, and that will come to light in the next few months, no doubt. The truth is, I think it's fundamentally a localized issue, primarily, and the broader direction of travel of the legal AI market is just going to go on and on and on and get better and better, because the base models are improving, uptake is increasing, revenue is overall increasing. As long as, to your point, some of these leading companies don't go nuts and start hiring way too many people, right? And in a way that they can't match on revenue growth, they should be fine. Right. So bringing it back to your point, why wasn't Robin AI so celebrated? Perhaps, I don't know, maybe they weren't engaging quite as much, that they decided to withdraw and just do their own thing, which you could argue is a fine strategy. Sometimes people decide not to engage so much. They don't go to conferences anymore. They don't go into the press very much. They just stay away from people. They just say, we're just going to plow our own furrow. We're making revenue. Everything's cool. We don't need to do publicity anymore. And some companies do that, and they're fine, but not always.
So I have to sort of out myself, because I like to, flex on my good predictions. But I actually wrote an article about that earlier this year, where I said the fact that Robin didn't show up to Clock, I actually used that as a kind of argument for why I thought they were doing specifically well. And one of the things
I think unfortunately it may have been the opposite. It may have been the fact that Clock, as far as I understand, is a fairly, how can we put it, luxury event.
Yes.
Vendors, and they may have said, maybe this year we're not going to do that.
Right. Well, and again, I think that is unique. Meaning, what I heard from them was, we are putting emphasis on our own events. We're hosting general councils ourselves. And I actually thought of this, and I thought of it, and I still think it is a relevant data point, that today general counsels, chief legal officers, heads of legal teams are interested in AI. Once upon a time, you got all your news from your head of legal ops. You sort of outsourced this. You didn't really care about it. But today I was suggesting, and I think this is true, and I hear this from other companies as well, is that when you talk to chief legal officers and general counsels at major corporations, very often they are interested in AI. Many of the decisions about which AI personal assistant to buy for the law firm, this, have come through managing partners of the law firms. It's not always that these decisions are being outsourced to an experienced tech buyer. So that was my takeaway. But obviously, looking back at it now, there's a fair chance that the reason they didn't go to Clock is that they were looking at sponsorship dollars and saying we can't spend that now. Here's my sort of point where I think there is a very actionable takeaway from this story. And I just wanted to position it as follows. If you think about Robin and their service, if you're just comparing the service to the product that's offered by Harvey and some of the other ones, Robin's service was, and I say service, was not to sort of put your tech into a department and have the department use the tech.
Exactly.
It was much more about, we've got tech, but we've also got people, and we're going to be able to do 85% of this with tech and 15% of it with our people. And our people are not, schlub lawyers. They very often worked at really good firms. And now this is what this is like the work that they focus on. And they had kind of built a new paradigm of law firm. Where I think Robin failed is I think they never leaned into that enough. They were fence sitting. On the one hand, they were like, it was like a product, but on the other hand, it wasn't really a product. And it's like, either be Harvey or be Crosby. But when
it goes to our last chat,
right?
Our second episode previously, that the UDU has been very, very, very clear about what it is. Well, certainly since they bought Johnson Hannah, the ALSP, and then they bought another one, Outhouse, and they built their own law firm in Phoenix for regulated work. They've been very, very, very clear about this fusion between AI and people. And they're completely upfront, because they want to provide the best possible service. They've got a very, very clear message. Also, have a think about, this is the question. Again, we do not know. It's all speculation. It'd be interesting to find out. But and this goes for everybody, really. Everyone who's got humans inside their tech company doing contract review, and there are several, is what actually is that split? I mean, you said 85%. Is it 50-50%? Actually, is it actually the tech is actually doing 50% of a job, and therefore the other 50% you need a whole bunch of people? And then, is it even worse than that? Is it actually the other way around? Is it actually 20% by the tech and 80% by the people? We don't know. Like I say, it's speculation, and it would be interesting to find out. And that is, for example, and also we get into a funny situation there, because then you could say, well, if it actually is more, where we're really relying on the people here really heavily, not just a little bit, not just to finesse that contract, but we absolutely are depending on these, internal lawyers to do this work. What's the difference between them and, say, Factor, which uses AI, for example, internally? It doesn't have it initially, but they do now. And other ALSPs, right? What's the difference between them and one of the big four ALSP arms, And you start to get to this point where the whole thing starts to blur, and really you get to a point where some of the only questions are how far have you got on that dividing line, right? Is it 80-20 tilted this way towards the AI, or is it 80-20 tilted the other way towards the human lawyers?
Lot to unpack there. First, let me just note that I think if you're talking about, the irony of this conversation is, again, comparing Robin to like a Harvey or a Spellbook or one of the personal assistants. I think the ROI of a Robin is actually much clearer than the ROI of a Harvey, right? The ROI of a Robin is, I used to pay an outside counsel or an ALSP a certain amount to do this work. I'm now getting this work quicker and less expensive because I'm using Robin. So it was like direct replacement, and it was very easy to justify the spend on Robin inside some of the big companies who they worked with. And they did work with a number of both PEs and Fortune 500 companies doing really significant work. And I think in some instances, there were law firms that lost work directly because of Robin. So the kind of ROI is more clear, but I think this is the key. And this is the takeaway for law firms and for tech companies right now. There's a huge advantage to being first mover, but only if you pair it with crystal clear messaging and a very strong brand. Harvey's winning on brand and messaging, but killing Robin.
Well, and I think, again, we mentioned something similar to this on the last chat as well, that these are fundamentally different models. One is selling a software. Does Harvey, Legore, and others have people who used to be lawyers or still are practicing lawyers, but are working inside these companies, providing their legal know-how to help to improve the products? Yes, but they are not selling work products. That is the fundamental difference. ALSPs like Factor, the big four ALSP arms, of which Many have pared them back, but there's still something going on there. And Robin and others, they are selling a work product. Right, no different to a law firm. They're doing it slightly differently. In fact, actually, how different is it? Because if you took a big, say, UK law firm that has a managed services arm of its own, maybe they've got a bunch of people up in the north of England somewhere at a lower cost base, and they're using AI tools. What's the difference? The law firm has probably got a sense of a higher level of responsibility because they know they're a law firm. And maybe it's an identity issue. It's kind of like, well, what are we? A software company? Are we a law firm? How much investment are we putting into getting these responses perfectly right? How much effort are we putting into the technology, into perfecting it? It's the thing is, I think on one level, it sounds like launching an AI-driven ALSP sounds like, on paper, it sounds really easy. Hey, we've got a room full of people. We add some AI. The AI speeds up the process. Boom, Bob's your uncle. Easy. But clearly, it's not so simple.
But my question is this. Why is Crosby getting another check from Sequoia? Why is Udia raising $100 million from General Catalyst? Covenant, like we're seeing this work with other companies and other companies.
I think they're all different. I think that's the other thing as well. Is that all three of those plus Robin, plus you could then add the ALSPs that are using a lot of AI, they're all different and they're all doing different streams of work. So like Crosby is tending to do really the more standardized work, like
contracts, right?
But the really sort of more, the basic end of contracts. So they can do that. Udia, as far as I understand, is doing more complex stuff, but the teams they've got are really solid. I mean, Johnson Hanna, really respected ALSP. As far as I understand, they're working with some of the top tech companies in America, handling their contract works, right? The team they've just bought in Maryland, Outhouse, the guy who ran that, he was a GC, right? I mean, these are really top people, right? They have really assembled a great, great legal team. And I think that is a fundamental difference as well. I think if you're going to do complex contracts, okay, you need good tech, but you also need really good lawyers. So it ups the ante. And again, if you look at, say, Covenant, well, Jen, who co-founded Covenant, she was the general counsel of WeWork
and worked at Wilkie before.
She wasn't a paralegal. She was really experienced. She is really experienced.
So you're making a point that I made recently to a client firm, which was what was in vogue maybe 10 and 15 years ago was, let's outsource this to a group in Manila and we'll just do it at an incredibly low cost, right? And Manila or somewhere else. The thinking in AI, the thinking today is AI plus the very best people. Whether that's a developer, an engineer, a lawyer, AI, do not try to combine AI and cheap people, right? AI and the best.
That's how you really put your finger on it. Sorry for getting a bit excited, but I think you put your finger on the key point of this entire episode, which is that people think that AI plus anybody is good. It's not. AI plus anybody is actually the worst formula. Right? You want a super smart, super experienced person who knows exactly what they're doing, who knows what the difference between good and bad is, and AI, and knows how to use it.
Yeah.
That is a great mix, right? But if you have very junior people who are not super experienced in very, very complex contracts and all the various things that go on around them, which is hugely complexifying kind of, 4D chess type thing, right? And let's not pretend that complex contracts are easy, right? Because if they were, everybody would be doing it, right? And then you bung in some AI. The AI is perhaps producing a few errors as well. I mean, this is not a simple problem.
It's not a simple problem, and again, I think that had Robin truly leaned in, because I saw they did this rebrand earlier this year. And when I saw their rebrand and I saw their big announcement, my feeling was it hit flat. There was something about it when I was reading. It was a nice new logo, but I didn't like a really good rebrand. If you're going to invest in that, should signal something, a deep insight about the company, something that we can attach to. And it felt to me like this was a rebrand of mostly logos and colors. And I think that what they should have really been focused on was, we are a new paradigm of service provider. Now, to your question before, what's the difference between this and a big four, or this and a law firm managed services company? I think my answer to that is, on the one hand, well, conceptual, not so much. But where I think they are truly different is those businesses typically started off as body shops. And then in order to be able to increase profitability, maybe sometimes they would either buy some tech, or at the big four, they might have some of like their engineering teams cobble together some technology. But I think at their core, the businesses are body shops. That's how they operate. And it's really hard to move away from that. And this is like classic Innovators dilemma stuff. So I think that if you start a business on the premise, like Crosby has done, which you say, listen, our goal, they have two metrics they talk about at Crosby, which is they need to reduce to increase the speed of TTAT, total turnaround time, and they need to reduce the HURT, human review time. And I think they start off with that premise, and they say, we are just going to build our process until we can give back your contract within an hour of you sending it to us with all of the best recommendations. We need to give you a better work product faster and for less expensive.
But that traps them in doing relatively straightforward, standardized contracts, right? I mean, there's no easy way. For now. I mean, maybe in 5-6 years, AI will just be so incredibly brilliant that we can do the most complex deals and contracts and so forth. But for now, the truth is, right, I was just thinking of an analogy, right? So, okay, let's say I hired someone very, very junior, straight out of journalism school. And I said, yeah, please use ChatGPT or some specialized journalist writing type tool, right? Using AI. That is a weapon of mass media destruction, right? That would be, so I've got this very experienced journalist who really doesn't even know what a good news story is, perhaps, right? Doesn't quite know the difference between, what is a fact and what is hearsay, doesn't quite know how to handle interviews properly, doesn't know how to structure a story. And then we throw this like super, super powerful AI into the middle of it, which isn't perfect either. We smash those two things together and then we publish the output. That would be terrible. That would just be like, a garbage creator.
Sounds like BuzzFeed.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I haven't read BuzzFeed. I don't think I've ever read BuzzFeed. I did walk past their headquarters once, but that was, anyway, another story. But the point is that if it's true for me, then it's true for the law and any other knowledge or information-based industry, isn't it? Right. So the idea that you can get away with reviewing very complex, difficult contracts, which have a significant monetary value for large corporations with potentially massive numbers of legal aspects floating around the edges of them, and just throw some AI, throw some junior paralegal type person at it, and it's all going to be fine. Just doesn't make sense. Not yet. We're just not. Maybe for a basic, if you only use.
I don't think it'll ever work. You know why? Because you always want, the reason people tend to hire, like just from a game theory perspective, like a very expensive attorney on like an M&A deal, for instance, it's because the other side has a very expensive smart attorney.
Not just that.
So what are you going to do? You're going to hire, say, oh no, now there's AI. I'll hire a cheap attorney plus AI. And the other side has their very expensive attorney who also may be using AI. Like, who's going to come out with like the better deal terms in that case?
Well, exactly. I mean, think about it. It's just like, at the end of the day, expertise and talent plus AI is double plus good, win-win, right? AI plus inexperience plus the inability to know good from bad is actually a multiplier towards the negative, right? It gets worse. You could accelerate the decline of your product.
So let me jump into, I think, another most important headline which is that next week you've got Legal Innovators London going on. I'm gonna be there. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person.
Oh, good. I didn't know.
Listen,
you'll be speaking. You'll be speaking, I hope.
So I have to check. There was some confusion of whether I was going to speak or not.
Okay.
But I'm coming regardless. Obviously, this is gonna be a big topic of conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, because this is like, a lot of LegalTech insiders come to your events, me included. But my question is, what do you think are going to be like the other key topics for people who are thinking about attending? What are going to be the other key topics of discussion outside of, is Robin a canary in the coal mine or not? Which both you and I think it's not.
It's not. Okay. So first of all, we're doing law firm day, in-house day, and then litigation day, which particularly in the UK resonates because we have a split profession between solicitors and barristers. So that's even more significant. Yep. So there will be different issues being discussed on the different days. Broadly, I think another theme that will be inescapable will be, what is the benefit of the application layer? And I think that we have, as an industry, at least since ChatGPT arrived, we have forgotten, or perhaps we've not, maybe not forgotten is the right word, we haven't emphasized what goes into a good application layer. From the data connections to the workflows, to the UI, to the UX, to having all of these tools and skills very, very, very nicely arranged in a way that a lawyer can get maximum value from tapping the underlying AI, right? So, you've got people going, we don't need, LegalTech tools, blah, 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 blah. I'd say actually you do. I mean, okay, if you want to now, I've seen people online who are really super smart, tech people, computer geek type people, and they're like, hey, you don't need LegalTech tools. I know how to use, this tool and that tool, and I smash them together, and I connect to this, and I use this, and I download some GitHub code from here.
Yeah, it's like lawyers don't use GitHub, buddy.
And you're like, how many lawyers? You might be legally qualified as well, but how many lawyers in the regular day job world of lawyers know how to code, want to smash all these different tools together, can handle it all? And in fact, even if they did that, would their IT security team internally allow them to do it? It'd be basically, you're doing what? You're connecting which to what and how? I'm sorry, mate, you can't do that. That's one of the reasons why we have this big platform that we bought, because we all know how it works.
Yeah, I said to someone recently, and it was actually a very smart entrepreneur who I like, but he made this comment to me. He said, what is like Harvey if like not packaging? Right. No, but I said to him, I was like, wait a second. I was like, packaging is a huge business. Packaging is a huge business, like Coca-Cola bottling company, a very, very successful company. Like, do you think that the Coca-Cola tastes exactly the same if you drink it from a can that says something else? In other words, I think that we sometimes say, oh, it's just packaging, as if packaging is like simple. No, I think that packaging is actually like very difficult and very competitive,
it's not just packaging. It's literally the entire restaurant. It's the table, the chairs, the service, the music, the ambiance. It's the whole deal. It's not just You could just say, well, here's a glass of Coke, but it's like there's a huge hinterland of things going on that create value in the legal tech world.
I think that the challenge, and we discussed this recently because I actually have it up on my screen, that that recently Winston Weiberg himself from Harvey actually said that OpenAI is their biggest competitor, and I agree, and I think the challenge is not that like Harvey hasn't done a very good job in creating an experience. The problem is that like OpenAI is really good at it too. OpenAI is amazing at creating packaging around their frontier model. They're constantly shipping, they're constantly releasing features. And this is a problem that I think a lot of businesses have been struggling with, is that the AI tool that they buy at their company often has guardrails or various methods to neuter the AI, so that the AI that people are using in their personal life is actually better technology than what they're being given to use at work, which is why I think so many people will leak very often outside of their current, firm approved tool and default back into Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, because that's what they're using in their personal life. And that's what they find really effective. So to me, it's like, I get, I think the application layer, companies are going to continue to have a challenge because they're up against companies that are building just phenomenal user experiences, maybe some of the best user experiences that like consumers have ever had in tech. So it's challenging. But I think they're doing a good job though.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think law firms will, and in-house counsel is slightly different. But I think law firms, for one, will stick with legal tech products broadly. They will. Maybe some of the very small firms will be like, hey, we'll just use ChatGPT. And maybe some of the outliers, like Freshfield, for example, who are working very closely with Google and all the things that Google offers, they're different. They're doing things their own way. Although, as far as I understand, they have not ruled out bringing in a big platform either. That's not off the table either.
I think that law firms shouldn't be putting anything off the table. And I think what law firms should have been doing over the past 3 years was experimenting in like the simplest ways possible. And if that meant Harvey, great. If that meant ChatGPT or Copilot or what, they should have been running multiple. They should have been looking at this. And the worst thing that you could have done up until now is nothing. And I think that there are a good number of firms in that boat as well.
Well, there are. You see all the surveys. I see all. I tend not to report on the surveys anymore because it's just kind of like, well, yeah, everybody's got it now. But the truth is that there's always like a little nub, at the bottom of all of those charts who haven't. And then you're like, yeah, actually, so 10 out of 100 of the top 100, that's actually quite a significant number. Who are these law firms who are living in 2021?
Yeah.
That's pretty scary, actually, because they are going to have an almighty need to leap forward very soon when it dawns on them that all of their clients expect them to have this technology and they literally haven't even touched it. It's going to be, wow, that's going to be a jump.
Fun times. Richard, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week in London.
Yep.
This has been another excellent AI adventure.
Fantastic. Thanks, Zach.